Erev Tabbatai. One of the things that we do on Shabbat, when we need to have things going on and off, appliances, lights, all kinds of things, we use a timer, what do? We set the timer on Erev Shabbat, on Friday, and it's going to go off and on whenever you want, right? According to the way you adjust it. Everybody does this, right? Most people, they do. And some people don't know how to do it, whatever, they're not experienced, but somebody's got to teach them, whatever. So he needs a teacher, he needs a Rabbi for that, right, to teach him how to do it. But the point is like this, right? We set it on Erev Shabbat. Now, here's the thing, right? I'll tell you one thing interesting. When these timers came out, Shabbat clock, we call it Shabbos clock, right? Shabbat clock. He didn't like it, Rav Moshe Feinstein. He said he thought there was a problem with this. You know what he said? He said the problem is like this, that people see the lights going on and off, and they don't know that it's doing with the timer. So they look inside your house, they see, off, on. They think you're mechalot Shabbat, chashad, they suspect you. But the truth is, this what he said, Rav Moshe Feinstein, we don't really care for it so much. The minhag is not like this. We don't really care so much about that. Why? Because everybody knows today, we have timers, so nobody's gonna suspect, that somebody's doing it by with his hand. Everybody knows that we have timers. So there's no suspicion. There's no chashad. So we're not really so concerned with that, about what he said about that. That was in the old days, 50 years ago, 60 years ago, when it first came out. He was worried about that a little bit. Today, nobody cares anymore about this. Anyway, another thing is like this, right? Let's say, okay, you set the timer to go off and on, right? And now, on Shabbat, you see that you want it a little bit later, a little bit earlier. So can you move the clock now a little bit? Move it. Tick, 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 tick. Tick, 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 tick. Right? Can you move it or not? That's the question, right? So the truth is, that there are some poskim who write that you shouldn't move it. Like this. But they're not correct what they're saying. The truth is, if you do it very carefully, you're allowed to move it. So what do I mean to say by that? What I mean to say is like this, right? As long as you don't turn it off when you move it, it's going to be longer, right? It's going to take a little more time. So we call that grama, Grama means indirect causation, indirect. So it says in the Gemara, right, in Shabbat, Melacha hi asura, grama muteret. Right? That's what it says in the Gemara. So grama, what does that mean? Indirect causation is mutar. Even though there's a little bit of a machloket in the Shulchan Aruch, right? When is it mutar? When is it asur? All kinds of things. But in general, right, everybody agrees, in principle, that grama is mutar. It depends on for what purpose. But anyway, the thing is, it's an indirect causation. So what does that mean? As long as you don't move the clock so much, that it's going to turn off and on when you're moving it, it's okay, because it's going to take a little bit more time, a few more minutes, let's say, 15 minutes, 10 minutes. It's okay. Because it's grama. You don't turn it off right away. Delay. There's a delay there, Indirect causation. That's called grama. So grama we allow. So therefore the truth is, with all due respect to all rabbis, who wrote about these things, they wrote all kinds of things, all kinds of teoria, they wrote about this, but the truth is, emet, that you're allowed to move the clock, as long as you don't turn it off and on, when you're moving it. But you gotta be careful, you know what I mean? Because if you go a little bit too far, sometimes it can turn off and on. You know, right? This happens sometimes. People are not so accurately, they're not so accurate, they're a little bit sloppy, saying, move it, hop. Went off, right? Went on, right? Because you moved it too much. So yes, you can move it, but be careful, don't do too much. It's going to light right away or going to go down right away.
I don't know what
Asur.
timer you're using. You're using manual.
The timer that goes in the wall, right? You plug it in, and
Manual, digital.
That's manual. That's manual.
Digital. Whatever you're using is a manual.
where is it? Where is it?
Right in the wall.
The wall, square.
Oh, this one, yeah. This is like in the wall, right? That's the one. I'm not talking about that.
Electric.
I'm not talking about it. I'm talking about the one that you move with your hand, It's electric, but it's not electronic. You understand? It's electronic. It's not electronic.
Mechanic.
It's electric, but right, manual, right? Yeah, okay. You get the point. So anyway, you're allowed to move a little bit. This one, right? It's different because it doesn't have like a dial, So it's
Time is already set already.
right. It's already set, So you would have to change it. You have to go and press buttons over there, Change the actual electronic.
These are not allowed to use for sure.
Talk to me afterwards. We'll talk about that later. Afterwards. Ask me afterwards. So I don't want to get into that right now. It's a little bit of a hot topic, you know. Hot potato. You know what's hot potato? Tapuach adama lohet. Okay, we'll talk about that later. Anyway, the point is, right, that if you're moving the clock like this, you know, as long as you don't turn it off right away, turn it on right away, it's allowed to do that, you know. There's no problem. So the truth is, you know, everything that a person has, you know, like operating in his house, some kind of appliance or something, you should try to put it on the timer, you know, because this way he can turn it off and on, you know. But otherwise, you know, it's got to be on all Shabbat. You know what I mean? And it's not so good, you know. Honestly, I personally, you know what I do, right? The plata, you know, to heat the food, I put it on a timer. You know, I don't want it all Shabbat, 24 hours, you know, plata. Too hot, you know, the kitchen gets like hot. You know, who needs this? Why do I need it for? And also, you know, you get a big electric bill. You know, the plata wastes a lot of electricity, you know. It's strong.
I thought Hashem compensate whatever expense.
Absolutely, 100%, you're right, you know. 100%, you're right. But the thing is, you know, that why waste it, you know, if you don't need it? You know what I mean? That you shouldn't do. You know, why waste electricity? And also, the heat, you know.
What if your timer didn't work and you got cold plata, but you need to eat?
So here's the thing. Before we go to your question, right, I want to say one more thing, you know. There was a case, I remember several years ago. I think I told you guys one time. You know, there was some Jewish family in Brooklyn, you know. They had a plata and started a fire, the whole house burned down, you know. So, you know, I think some people died also. They were sleeping, whatever.
Oh, the kids die.
Yeah. You know, right? You know. Oh, okay. So you see, right? This is why I use a timer. Because the reason why it started a fire is because it's on all Shabbat. You know, it gets very, very, very hot. So it can start a fire like that, you know, Pajar.
They were using different kind of whatever you put on a gas.
So what's the thing? You know, from what I heard, right, what they were doing is they were putting towels, you know, insulation, you know, with towels, you know, triapka, you know, smartut.
Yeah,
You know?
towel.
Yeah, and this is what started the fire. You understand? The towels were on the plata long time, and it started a pajar.
That's a churros problem.
You understand what I'm saying? This is why I don't like, you know, to have the plata all night. What do I need it for all night? What do I need it for? It's just a big nuisance, you know? Well, I put it on timer,
Where?
you know,
Where?
in the wall.
On the wall?
Yeah. Regular, you know.
Also, I'm using the AC.
It goes on for 2 hours, and it shuts down. That's it. I don't want it on for 24 hours. What do I need it for? What's the purpose of that? I'm sorry, Michaela, what were you saying?
No, I'm saying I'm using for the AC on the summer. Like you have
Air conditioning, of course, air conditioning. You know, but the air conditioning is more safe, you know. But this one is dangerous. You know what I mean? Plata is dangerous. It's a fire hazard. You know what I mean? It's a quite a, you know, it's a strong device. You know, very, very, very powerful. I mean, all kinds of things can happen with plata. Also, there's smell comes out of it. You know, all kinds of burning. You know, all kinds of things. What do you need this for? 24 hours.
Shabbat.
Huh?
You feeling the Shabbat?
You're feeling Shabbat. You're feeling pajar. That's what you're feeling. You're feeling ashes, you know, ashan, right? Okay, so this is the thing, you know. So when it comes to these things, the timer is a very good thing, you know. Another advantage, right, when you have the plata with the timer, you know what it is, right? He knows about this. It says in Maran, my rabbi, in Chazon Ovadia, he writes that if you have like a soup, you know, let's say, right, and you want to heat it up, if you put it on the plata when it's off, you know, and it's going to turn on later, you're allowed to do that. Grama. Here also it's grama, right? They're indirect causation. So therefore, it's good to have a timer. You know, this way you can put soup, you know, and eat soup for lunch. You know,
What if it boils?
Can
you boil it?
You're not boiling it. It's going to go by itself. That's the thing, right? It's grama. Oh, it's from Hashem. It's from God. You're not doing nothing, right? All you're doing is putting it on there, and then it's cold, right? It didn't turn on yet. So that's another advantage, right, of having on a timer. Okay. I'll tell you another interesting thing, you know, which is some people had this, you know, genius idea, ingenious, you know, right? Brainstorm, you know, you know what it is? What they want to do is they want to use the dishwasher with the timer. You ever heard this before? Right? So what do? Right? They eat dinner, right? They eat dinner. This dishwasher is on a timer, you know. So what they do is they open up the dishwasher when it's off, right? They put everything inside, and then 1 hour later it turns on and does the whole thing, right? Washes the whole dishes.
That's a
Good idea. So the question is it allowed to do this? You know what I mean? So according to what we said, it's okay. You know, it's delay, right? Indirect causation, grama. Also, same thing, right? But here's the thing, you know, Maran, Rabbi, he didn't like this so much to do it this way. he was a little bit against it, you know? You know why that is?
Because with the Shabbat, it's like,
Hey, what cupboard is there? What cupboard?
it's like to turn on TV and with the timer.
Yeah, but it's going by itself, you know, so there's no problem.
Turn
You know?
on the TV on with the timer. What's the
Yeah,
difference?
TV you're not allowed to watch, you know, but what's the problem with washing dishes? Well, you're allowed to wash dishes on Shabbat. You're allowed to, right? There's no problem, you know. TV you're not allowed to watch it even on Yom Chol, you're not allowed to watch TV. Don't tell them, don't tell them. Secret. I'm joking. But anyway, right? Okay, so as we said, right, what about the dishwasher? So truth is, you know, according to the din, really, you know, the basic din, it's the same thing as the plata, same thing as anything else. So then why was Maran a little bit worried about this dishwasher? What's the reason why? One time I asked him, you know, this question, you know. He was walking by after he gave a class, you know. I said, Rabbi, are you allowed to? He kind of like, you know, gave me like one of those, you know, strange answers, you know, not clear, you know, unclear. So, and he just walked away, you know. So he was a little bit uncomfortable with this question.
Like you say to us, we will talk later on.
Okay, so what's the reason why? You know why? You know why this is?
So,
Soap. Soap is okay, no problem. You're allowed to use soap on Shabbat. But you can't wash your hands with soap. What's the problem?
soap your hands too.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, why not? Why not? Liquid soap,
Maybe
right?
the water.
Sephardim, they even use solid soap, you know, but everybody uses liquid soap. Nobody cares about that.
The water is cold, and then you warm it up. The water.
He's getting close. See, because he's Israeli. Israelis are smart, you know. You see, he's a Israeli mind, you know, genius mind, Israeli. So I'll tell you what the story is. The problem is like this, you know. Sometimes what happens is with the dishwasher, you don't realize, you know, that it's already on. So you close the door and it starts right away. Buch, bah! The water starts, you know, coming. Shh. So if you do that, you know, you didn't do grammar, you did it right away. Sometimes people miscalculate this, you know, because when you close the door, the dishwasher starts sometimes, if it's on. You understand? So this is what the rabbi was worried about a little bit, you know? So this is why he didn't like this so much.
But other than that, you allow?
Yeah, I mean, but, you know, if you don't make this mistake, right, and, you know, you're a smart guy, right, smart, you're clever, then it's okay, yeah, it's no problem, you know, technically speaking.
For midnight, it's going to be by an hour, 2 hours.
Yeah, right, you know, as long as you don't make any mistakes, you know what I mean? Sometimes the woman also, you know, she's a little bit half asleep, you know, the woman, you know, the wife, right? So she closes the door, you know, she doesn't realize that it's on, you know, so starts.
And there's a light when you
If
open
you
up,
put the
the light
timer
goes
for
on.
12
Yeah, the light, okay, I'm sorry. So anyway, right, the point is that the dishwasher is a little bit of a vapros, you know, not the best thing in the world, you know, maybe better not to do it unless you have no choice. You know what it is? I'll tell you something. There are some families, you know, they like to invite a lot of people for Shabbat. You know, you have friends like this, you know, family. They like to invite a lot of people, you know. They bring like 20 people for Shabbat, you know, relatives, you know, this, friends, neighbors, 20 people over there, 25 people. You know, so what happens is that who's gonna wash all these dishes? You know what I mean? 25 people dishes. You know, it's like it's all night you're gonna be up washing dishes. You know, that's why they want to use a dishwasher. You understand? Because it's practical. You know, it helps you. You know, to deal with the big situation. You know, but you know what they say, right? The rabbis will tell you, if you have a lot of people coming, use, you know, chatpami, right? Use plastic, right? Use the plastic, yeah, that's it. You know, use the disposable stuff. You know, that's what it is. Okay, but the truth is, you know, there's also a problem with that. You know what it is? Because on Shabbat, right, it says the Shulchan Aruch, you're supposed to use your best dishes, you know, the best stuff you got, you know. Using paper, you know what I mean? That's not the best stuff, you know. You're doing cheaping out, you know, so it's not kavod Shabbat to use paper or plastic, you know, for Shabbat. Not so much kavod, you know.
Plastic is beautiful, like a
You're right, but you know, it feels cheap, you know, when you hold it in your hand, you know. It's cheap, you know. It's not the same thing. You know how it is, right? So, it's not so much kavod for the Shabbat. You know? Everything, okay, but it's also a halakha, you know. You know, there's a mitzvah always to do, you know, things, a mitzvot in a nice way, you know, in a beautiful way. You know, so this is also, you know, same thing, right? That's what I say always, you know, like when you buy a mitzvah, when you buy something, you know, some mitzvah, try to buy a nice looking one, you know, good looking, you know, mitzvah, you know. Buy a nice looking lulav. Looks good, you know, not ugly one, you know, all broken. You know what I mean? Or etrog, you know, right? Buy a nice one, you know. Not all black, you know, black spots. Nice etrog. Get a nice one, you know. Tefillin, get a nice tefillin, you know, good looking, you know, nice. Black, good. Talit, you know, also. Buy a nice talit. Same thing, you know. Everything, there's a mitzvah to make every mitzvah beautiful, to beautify the mitzvah. You know? So the same thing also over here, you know, with Shabbat, Kavod Shabbat. Okay, Baruch Adonai Leolam, Amen ואמן. רבי חנן כשומר, רצה הקדוש ברוך הוא לזכות ישראל, לפיכך חיבר להם תורה ומצוות, שנאמר אדוני חפש, למען צדקו יגדיל תורה וידיר.